It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
The detective said missing kids usually come home. What happens when they don't?
Based on a true story.
Police looking for John Gacy.
We discovered bodies. By the looks of it, they're younger men.
The things he did to those kids. He's sick.
The system failed these families.
Devil in Disguise, John Wayne Gacy. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Do you know how many there are?
Up to you to find out.
Hey there, welcome to Why We Roll, a tabletop role-playing game design podcast.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Dance Macabre, and Wythe Marshall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Throughout the show, Chris and Wythe hope to amplify new creative voices. We'll chat with different TTRPG designers, focusing on the world of indie games.
We take a curious approach to game design, working through a range of mechanical and narrative questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games just so powerful.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
We're live with Why We Roll. I'm Wythe Marshall.
I'm Chris Pickett.
And we have Borough Bound with us. What's up, Borough Bound team?
Hola.
How's it going?
Borough
What's
Bound.
up? So not the whole team, I guess, but I don't know. The core team, you tell me. Two of the people
The
who
coolest
make Borough
members
Bound.
on the team.
That's right.
Oh, wow. All right.
Borough Bound is like 11 people
Wow.
of varying, I think, well, I don't know, maybe James, you disagree, but like everybody is full. If you're on the team, like you're on the team. But, James and I are pretty much full time with this. And then other people have
Other
roles
gigs
that don't
Yeah, yeah.
keep them 100% occupied with the project.
Well, that's the voice of Will Savino, whom
Hello.
we have had on the show before. Will makes amazing music and is a really good writer and plays very funny, self-deprecating characters in games. And we talked to Will a bit about Borough Bound, and Will suggested maybe we could also have on James Southall, who is, as I understand, the art director. Is that right, James?
Uh-huh. And cartographer, I guess.
And cartographer. Cool.
Very nice.
So that's the voice of James. Do y'all want to do little quick intros, plug, generally what you're up to before we ask any specific, weird questions Chris and I have?
Yeah, how would you describe yourselves?
We'll do each other.
Icebreaker.
Nice, I like that.
Yeah. Here we go. James, professionally known as James Nathaniel, previously did designed comics for Games Workshop, making official Warhammer comics, and then jumped off into doing independent cartography in the tabletop space. He was unfortunately really good, which was why our partner Che and I scooped him up and brought him onto our project Borough Bound, where James has been doing all of our main maps and leading the art team for our project, which involves a ton of art because we have illustrators and we have map variants and, graphic design and layout stuff. So James spearheads all of that for us. And he's a good bloke. As I'm sure that's what his parents say.
Well,
you heard it here first.
We
have our first good bloke on the show, as opposed to just a pure murder hobo.
You have heard it here first, because no one's ever said that about me.
It's a Why We Roll exclusive.
Yeah. Thanks, Will. That was nice.
James, you wanna introduce your business partner and best friend, or?
Oh, he's not here. Che's not here. Yeah, Will, psychopath. Not a nice person. Will, he just keeps it all secret. You just don't know anything about him.
You know, yeah, he's a mystery.
I'm a real sort of like standing in the corner thinking, who is that, cloaked figure in the tavern sort of vibe, mysterious quest giver, the point at which the branching narrative branches.
He's the Aragorn of Borough Bound.
Yeah. Are you standing in the corner going, they don't know that I wrote this music?
Yeah. He's standing in the corner saying, why doesn't anyone want to hang out with me? No, as far as I know, Will, you Music D20, right? Previously, you've done loads of soundtracks for video games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. It. No video games you've ever heard of, but that was main work until Music D20 and Borough Bound, and now it's just.
But I've heard them, and they're pretty cool.
Thank you.
And then, was it just Music D20 straight over to Borough Bound?
Yeah, in terms of tabletop projects, I think we talked about this last time, but I thought no one would ever pay me money to make music for tabletop stuff, and then our the founder number 3 of Borough Bound, Che and Peku, he was like, "Hey Will, you should make a Patreon," and I said that's stupid, and then we did it anyway, and it was at least successful enough to pay rent in Lansing, Michigan, which is a low bar, but bar that I passed anyway.
Still an achievement.
Yeah. And then it's been, tabletop nonsense forever for the past 5 years, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
And
congrats.
D20 is just kind of like ticking away in the background, right? It's still like.
Yeah, Music D20 still exists. I mean, it's mostly like, I'll still do the occasional track. It's mostly like collabs and stuff that I can't directly give to Borough Bound because it's like stuff where it's not like the whole team. Mm-hmm. But a bunch of people still subscribe to the Patreon because it's a weirdly good way to license music.
Right.
This is not like a self plug, but a lot of like random podcasters and YouTubers and stuff are just like, oh, well, it would be really good if I didn't have to use like the same royalty free tracks that everyone uses. Maybe I'll get like a 300 track library for $5 a month. And then they do that, which I don't know. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
That's a great deal. Yeah.
Plug. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. The last time I will plug not Borough Bound stuff on this Borough Bound episode.
You can plug away.
Plug anything you need.
Well, so that takes us up. So you both have cool, interesting background stories related to tabletop, but Borough Bound is not exactly music or exactly comic books for Warhammer. How did Borough Bound come to be? What is Borough Bound? I mean, we mentioned it in the episode, Will, with you previously, but why don't you give us like the elevator pitch, and also if both of you want to just talk about like how did it grow from Che doing maps, right, and Will, you're doing music and writing, to a much bigger team that you said now has 11 people, which is crazy. I mean, that's for a wild. Patreon, making cool maps for games and great writing and great music. I can see how you would want more than one person, but I mean, man, 11 people, that's a company. So yeah, why don't you walk us through that rapid growth, right?
Well, the original pitch was at a certain point, like during early COVID times, Music D20 organically stopped growing. So I yelled at my very successful friend and business partner, Che, before he was like a contractual business partner. And I said, hey, maybe you should just buy me out. I said, hey, you make a lot more money on Patreon than I do. Maybe, just give me money and like you can bring me into the fold. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. And then a couple months later, he pitched me on the idea on a separate idea for Borough Bound, which was, well, we didn't have a name for it at the time, but the idea was just, it's really hard. A lot of the decision making here is like economic, right? It's really hard to make giant maps and make money on them because they take too dang long to make. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to make, a 100 grid square by 100 grid square map, it's just going to take months to do that. And so that kind of content didn't fit into his Patreon, he and his main business partner Jay and Peku make really excellent maps, but overwhelmingly they're one-offs. It's like, here's a place where you'd have a battle, or here's a place where you do a social encounter or whatever.
Right.
But he was like, I love settlements. He's like I don't know. I think he describes himself as like an urbanist. He loves cities, and he loved the idea of big city maps, which just weren't, like I said, feasible for him to do on his own Patreon. And he also wanted to make something that was, more collaborative, more multi-dimensional. And so he was like, what if you, me, and like a full-time cartographer started this project? And originally it was just the three of us. We, like I said, we found James because I think we just found him because of like a viral Reddit post, right? The fallen skeleton map. James?
Yeah, I think, Che actually, after that skeleton map, Che messaged me and was just like, I saw your map. Do you want to join what's the big Discord with all of
the Tabletop Creators Guild Discord.
The invite only one. And I had like a total like imposter syndrome moment where I just ignored the message. And then like, I was like a month or two later, I was just like, I should probably really reply to that message. It's probably worth replying to. And I did. And then Che replied and was like, yeah, sure. Oh, and by the way, would you be interested in this project that we're doing? So I feel like had I not replied like a couple of months later, maybe that never would have happened.
What was the pitch that Che gave you on what Borough Bound was? Did he say, we're going to make, was it just like, I want you to make maps for cities? Was it that simple?
I can't remember whether he explained like piecing together the several maps to make a bigger city, or if it was just we're doing something with city maps. I'm pretty sure he probably did describe like several maps being put together over a few months. I feel like that's always been what was explained. Yeah, probably. Can't remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. We've been doing Borough Bound for 2.5 years now, and by some counts, like we're starting work on our 19th setting now. Wow. So like all of our, this is not a plug. This is just so people know what it is that we friggin' do. But each of our settings comes with a really big top-down map that is comprehensive enough to appear as though it is a full city, but also detailed enough that you can do super fine detail tactical combat or whatever if you're in a virtual tabletop, or if you've printed the maps out. And every setting comes with an EP to an album's worth of music, and a guide that introduces you to the setting and the lore and NPCs and quest hooks and whatever else might be relevant for a given setting. And we also do like a bunch of map and music variants. So like the main map might be like, here's a tropical city, and then a variant would be like, now here's the version of it where it's underwater. Or like the main map could be, here is a jungle fortress, and then one of the variants for that one is, okay, actually it's a fortress in the desert. So hopefully we give a lot of flexibility with how folks can use all of our content, because it's all pretty modular. And like I think we talked about last time I was on the show, every single person who engages with RPG content does not run stuff verbatim.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like nobody runs systems exactly as it's written. Everybody introduces homebrew rules. Everybody who runs, campaign modules from books tweaks stuff to fit their campaigns or their friends or whatever. And we do not just allow for that, but encourage that in every possible way with our settings.
Well, that came up last time, and some people do run stuff as written, it turns out, but I've only met one person who even claims to do that literally the last time we interviewed someone on the show. So I think that is really cool, and I think the sandbox approach makes total sense, which allows you to do interesting things with maps and the music, but even at the level of narrative and mechanical work. I think also it's worth mentioning, again, if someone has somehow not heard of Borough Bound, that the settings are system neutral, so they're not like tied to a single game. So you're not like you have to use. They feel a little bit tied to the general ideas in D&D 5e, but they also feel different enough. There's a lot of like sort of Borough Bound specific interesting ideas you guys have cultivated. So it does have its own kind of world, universe. And we can talk about world building and how you actually use the content yourselves. But I think that's an important note.
I would love to talk about that.
It's two things that, I know we've talked about the Dragon game here last time. And I think I would have to imagine that the average Why We Roll listener is less likely to be a D&D player than the average like tabletop gamer in general. But
maybe
there are a lot of dang D&D players out there, and making stuff that is system agnostic still means it is useful to at least not alienate D&D players, right? But also, like, Wythe, you said that what we do is kind of D&D-ish. I mean, it's just that what we do is vaguely Western fantasy-ish, and a sort of canonized version of that is
there's no mechanics or anything like that.
Right.
But that is sort of D&D-ish, but it's for the reason you cite, right? It's not like you have anything with Hasbro. It has to do with the culture.
It is and it isn't, which is really weird.
Canonized Western fantasy is nearly indistinguishable from D&D because 5e is about as it's a give and pull. On one hand, D&D is meant to try to be as standard Western fantasy as possible, and also they've but
it also defines it at the same time.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't mean it as a dig, to be clear. We can get spicy, but that was just a neutral description that a lot of it is fantasy, right? A lot of it's high fantasy. That's all I'm saying.
Like James, I think one thing James is really excellent at is making maps that are, I mean, I'll certainly toot his horn. Oh, don't like that phrasing.
Too late. It's too late, man.
Too late.
James makes maps that are beautiful from a distance, just like really cool.
And you get close and they're bad.
And you're like, no.
You get close and they're also great. But then combined with the fact that, like, I don't know, they're just like aesthetically pleasing. And I think a lot of people just like looking at them and want to work with them. The maps are all tactically interesting for those people who are playing combat at all in any sort of turn-based fashion. Like, James, are you thinking about how far 30 feet is, because that's the standard walk speed in D&D?
Yeah, I enjoy, I do that because I enjoy it. Like, there have definitely been conversations at Borough Bound where it's like, who cares about the grid and all that kind of stuff? Or at least there's been a suggestion of, like, do we need to worry about it? So I think I focus on that because I just really enjoy that. And like when there are gaps and stuff, I'm thinking, because I run D&D, I'm always thinking in D&D. So I'm thinking like 3 squares is probably the limit on what people are going to jump over. And then if anything beyond that, you're going to have to get creative. And I'm thinking about what can I put in one square? Like if it's half one thing and half another, does that mean you're standing in one or the other? So yeah, I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff because I really do enjoy it.
Well, I think that's not just D&D. That's all. I mean, that's the whole legacy of the Dragon game. But there's a ton of games that use 5-foot grid squares as kind of a basis. So it also is just a common vernacular that we can kind of all point to. And
James, do you think that like as VTT use gets more prevalent, I mean, it's already everything, right? But as people start using that more and become more fluent in it, that there's a chance that grids will become less important because everything can just be measured with like lines and stuff.
I do hope so, because because if you're measuring like in Warhammer or whatever, then who cares? Like you're measuring the distance. You can
the
be
square doesn't matter. It's like, we've established the scale, so who cares where the square is? Yeah.
And then you've got like D&D, for instance, how far you can jump is based on your strength score, which can be like 16. 15 foot is 3 squares. But people are like, well, then what's the point of having 16? With a ruler, you can just measure 16, you can get super specific. And I think that opens up to way more creativity and means that players feel better about what their stats are and stuff. So yeah, I kind of hope that that's the way things go.
It's weird that with grids, strategy starts to feel more gamey in like a stupid way.
It's tactical.
Yeah.
Right. It's tactical in a very game. So I play theater of the mind when I do my sessions, but I had a long running D&D campaign that in the final battle, like our cleric made a point of saying that he wanted to end his turn 65 feet from the big bad. And I was like, all right, I'm GMing going like, okay, yeah, you're 65 feet, thinking that wasn't important. But it was literally just so that like she couldn't counterspell him the turn after. But like, that's an insane notion outside of a TTRPG. Like if you were in an actual magical battle atop of, an Eldritch Fortress, you wouldn't be like, assuming one of my guys can restrain her. 65 feet is exactly what I'll need.
It's more like American football. It makes me think of the Super Bowl, which just happened for the time of this recording, and that's pretty much the only football I watch all year. But it's that kind of weird thing of like 1 yard being a meaningful interval in my life. Like never matters. It doesn't come up in football, the rest of the world, in that sense where everything is measured. And then you have these tactical combat games like American football or D&D where you're like measuring out, like you said, 65 feet versus 70.
American football a tactical combat game?
Yeah, sure. It's all the same to me. It's a bunch of people running at each other, yelling. It's the same genre.
It kind of is.
You're not wrong.
There's a grid, basically. Yeah.
Dude, Games Workshop has Blood Bowl for a reason.
Yeah. But this goes to the whole question of simulationism and like, what are you simulating and what is the fun? And obviously, I think we've identified that for some people, there's a lot of fun in abstracting, what they're doing, their simulation down to like 5-foot intervals, whatever number you want to pick for your system. And I think analogously, because for me, I don't love that style of combat, but I really get it with abstracting cities. And when I draw maps and I think of like where people are to like kind of the grid of the world. And if that makes sense, almost like in JRPGs in the airship, you're moving from sort of location to location across a continent. I think there's a lot of interesting things that we do abstract even beyond combat. Combat's a really obvious example because you do want some rules there to make it sort of fair seeming. Yeah. But I think beyond that, it's fun to think about because this came up with Sootwin Barrow, where it's like, wait, is this actually the size of a medieval or early modern village, or is it meant to be an abstract representation of like the minimum quantum of village? Because it's still a gigantic, beautiful map, but it would actually take even longer to try to draw like 500 buildings versus 100, right? So it got into this sort of interesting place of like, like I said, you have these sort of points in space, nodes and lines that you're abstracting at every level. You're doing it in combat, but you're also doing it with like, scenes where you're moving through different environments. And I think that's fun. And most of us who don't make maps for a living, right, we're not, even as GMs or people writing other kinds of books for RPGs, we're not thinking about that stuff. So it's interesting using your material and being like, oh, they've actually thought about every level of this, I guess.
So we literally just talked about this. We had an all hands meeting on Friday, and we talk about this all the time because our pitch, our value proposition, to use LinkedIn speak, is I've just exercised Wyeth and Chris. They're no longer in the material plane. Our value proposition is we make whole cities that are wholly usable for tactical combat. And the real thing that we do is actually not that, because if we were to make whole cities, we would have to make like literally 100 times as much stuff. But what we make is city microcosms that are absolutely usable as whole cities for the purpose of like really in-depth tabletop gaming. And I don't think anyone who like plays on our settings would be like, this doesn't feel real. Like the only way it doesn't feel real is once you measure like, oh, okay, so this like whole city is like 300 feet across. Like in that sense, all right, fine, maybe that doesn't feel real. But if you were just to accept like, yeah, but it's like a microcosm, and this allows us to both, get a sense of different districts and different atmospheres and see the interesting, see all the points of interest, which are much more densely populated in map format. Because like in a real city, you just get blocks and blocks and blocks of zero interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's also
not in Buffalo, New York, of course. Buffalo,
New York is the most interesting place on earth, and also affordable. And well, I think there's.
Chris, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I think I've been Buffalo pilled. Well, I think there's also an interesting question of scale of perspective that happens as well, right? Like, I think about my experience living in New York City every day. Whenever I go into Manhattan, I don't know where the hell I am. I really don't know. I have to look at a map.
So it's a grid, Chris.
It is a grid, but I don't abide by grids.
It's an abstraction anyway.
Yeah, it's an abstraction. And I believe that abstraction should, anyway. As a player character, there's only so much that you can see. There's only so much that you can experience. So it wouldn't even make sense as a company practice to make an entire city, because there's only so much. You have to focus the experience of play in some way, shape, or form.
Well, right. That would be an art project. This is like the argument about Synecdoche, New York, as a movie where, it's like if we did an art project where we built Manhattan next to Manhattan and filled it with people and had them acting out real life New York, what does that tell us about ourselves or whatever? It's like, I guess that would be some sort of interesting experiment, but it would be practically impossible except in this, fictional setting. Yeah. So I think maybe that's, Will, to some degree what you're saying is like, maybe that would be cool if someone wanted to build like exact medieval cities that were very large, but like it would take forever, and who would use it? The use cases would be just what you're identifying. Like you need a place to fight, a place to hang out, a place for secrets, whatever, a few nodes.
Do many people walk all the way through maps when they're playing games? Because when I run games, I usually will do the combat.
Yeah.
And then when we're out of combat, we go into like a social encounter. And then we describe walking through the town, but our tokens are still in the same place. And then it's like, oh no, there's another combat encounter. So then you go and grab the tokens and drag them all the way across the other side of the map. So I feel like people aren't walking around those streets like from all the way and thinking, I got there way too fast. This is not very realistic,
I've tried running games like that when I was younger, where it was like, no, we're walking, we're going, like
it gets a bit boring, doesn't it?
It's terrible. Yeah, it's not fun.
There's a version of this that like it reminds me of the stuff I hate about Shadowrun, which is a long list. But in Shadowrun they have these insanely comprehensive lists of mechanics for shit no one cares about, right?
Yeah, like gun recoil.
Yeah, right. Like, and there's reasons for a lot of them. Like, I don't know, the gun recoil mechanics are really obtuse, but they had to put them there to make it so there's a world in which slicing someone with a katana is not completely outmatched by someone with a gun. Like, there are mechanical reasons for that, but at a certain point, like once you're calculating grenade explosion in enclosed spaces having multiple resonances of grenades work differently in hallways in Shadowrun than they do out in the open, which like that's realistic.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, I haven't thrown a lot of freaking grenades in hallways in my life.
You're missing out.
There's a limit to the point at which it becomes useful, and giving more at a certain point, and this sounds like a cop-out, but giving more at a certain point makes people less likely to engage with your content.
I totally agree. I don't think that's a cop-out at all. I think it's...
There's also there are two very meaningful trade-offs for map size, which is feasibility of ever making a physical map that you can use, right? Because if you have an enormous enough map, you literally can't print that at a scale where it will be usable. Yeah. Like no one has tables big enough is a thing that, as we have explored, we're working on our first physical stuff, and like, wow, to make full maps at full scale, like even our smaller maps don't work.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to increase all of our patrons' table sizes.
Yeah.
You have to buy everyone a ping pong table who supports you. Yeah.
A 6x4 wargaming table for every patron.
The other issue is we're doing stuff that is like high quality, right? Like it is whatever. I'm not going to get into DPI or whatever, but these are HD images. You get 4 players with a Foundry session, or God forbid, Roll20 with a big enough map. It just, unless you got some heavy duty rigs, like that bad boy's crashing. I mean, that's just That's just a very practical concern.
Well, and that's but you're bringing up all these things because we think about the Shadowrun example all the time of like there are reasons you could have a game where you use swords instead of guns, but there's also more elegant ways to design that as opposed to strict simulationism, and you're counting bullets and you're measuring the feet that a bullet would travel when propelled from a submachine gun, which is so far that it really does obviate melee scale combat to a degree, but you could do it more elegantly, and I think a lot of the OSR and ISR...
You fudge the damage dice, right? Like
no, I think there's like actually... I've thought about this because I thought of a game for like anime style, like you have super weapons, but they're not all guns, but like you could just have this crazy mix of weapons, but how do you equalize that? But I mean, I don't think you do it by like long, complicated tables with lookup, which like we just played Troika again for first time in a while yesterday, which is like, it's a silly universe that I like. I think they do a lot of cool, interesting things, but like it has annoying like damage lookup for seemingly no reason, where you have to use a table to look up values.
It's such a simple game in so many ways,
and then it adds this random shit.
But it's just not,
But that's what I was going to say is like
a system, but it's very complicated.
We were talking about the initiative system yesterday because we had 7 or 8.
It was like 8 people,
player characters, and so
it was way too many.
It was way too many, but the GM was just like, we're doing 5e initiative. I don't care anymore. Just roll your skill. Like it's fine. We're not doing this. It was too much. It was too much. It barred entry to actually enjoying the game,
which is so stupid because it's such like no one goes at that game and is like, man, Troika? Oh, the game with the cool initiative
cool
system?
Combat. Yeah, exactly. No one uses the initiative.
I'm not gonna lie, that was
evocative. Okay. Troika is cool because it's evocative, because the class system is so like, it's simple, but it's like bizarre. Like the ideas and the art just make you want to inhabit that world and engage with more unusual tabletop settings than most people are used to. And there is a space for Shadowrun type games. The space is Germany, I guess. Sorry, German listeners. But,
we don't have any.
We feel the same way. Like there are people who make massive maps, but for a million reasons, they're when they map entire cities at a realistic scale, they are not mapping it at a fine detail scale of the art, right?
That's what I was going to say. Right,
make really cool maps. You really can see a whole city block by block, and if you are doing a zoomed out play, and you can plop your tokens out and abstract movement on the scale of blocks or districts, that's cool and that works. And like Wife, when we play Stillfleet, like that's how we do it with your maps, more or less, right?
Yeah,
we're not counting 5 feet or whatever.
No, never. But that's what I'm saying is like
theater of the mind in that situation.
I only do theater of the mind.
But you will. Wife has cool like
like planetary maps and stuff like that.
Well, I have like even like building scale maps. We don't grid it out. It's more abstract. It's like, okay, I'm over here, you're over there.
Takes cursor and says, hey, that hospital that you're in, that's this tiny green rectangle here. And I go, okay, cool, right? Just
and it's never like it's always worked better in my experience than the grid version. But that's all to say. I think it's different products for different. What I was trying to say is like there might be people who want 4K. There's people who want the physical book, and partly the difference I'm seeing, and I mean, I'm looking also at you guys, you tell me you're more successful, right? Is as a business, the product development is different than the thing you do as a passion, either as an artist or for your friends as a friendly GM, which are all valuable. And I don't mean to diss anyone who's doing those things and not making a product, but when you are making a product and running a small business, you do have to understand, okay, there's an audience for 4K maps. There's an audience for printed things, but the printed things can't be the same as the 4K maps, eureka moment. And I think that's really cool to see you guys discovering these different use cases for the different kinds of content you produce, because they do make sense when you explain it. And like you said, there probably is, there's some group that really loves the recoil tables in Shadowrun. It's just, for most of us, it's like, okay, we can do this more elegantly and achieve the thing we wanted. But right, I mean, as long as there's a group who wants to like buy your thing in a way, you can keep going. So I don't know, again, not really a question, but I guess that question of print, maybe this kind of came up last time, Will, but I don't know if you can say anymore. It's all still secret.
Yeah, so we're working on our first Kickstarter right now. And one of the things we just decided is like, and like, James, you can feel free to. This is such a tricky space. So we're releasing one of our settings as a Kickstarter. We want to make sure that everyone playing this game has like the tools that will be most useful. So we're releasing many different kinds of maps. We're releasing, oh my God, this like sick sort of like isometric map of the setting that James did. That's meant to be sort of like in universe,
that's cool.
where it's like kind of diegetic. Have we shared that with anybody? I think that's still technically exclusive, right, James?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's seen that.
It's gorgeous though. And we also are releasing like a full map of the city at like maximum, you literally see every single square. That map is annotated and is not at, 1 grid equals 1 inch, because it would be too big. It would just be too big. Like no table could deal with it. And like you'd have to like roll it up or fold it. And it would just be like so clumsy at the full scale of one. Yeah. So we're just having on one side of this map, it's the full city annotated with like, in this bar, there is NPC and NPC, simple stuff, but just like enough to run the session. It's like a reference, right? But you're not meant to play on that map. And then we're releasing like sections of the city as maps you can actually freaking play on. Mm-hmm. So you can still do, I'm running a citywide combat encounter where you have the big map as reference, or you can, go full tactical mode and go like, we're in this quarter of the city and we can play on like, an unannotated map with the proper grid size.
That's kind as long as you're as long as your players aren't having an encounter on the edge of 2 maps. Because then you're putting one on the table down, moving another, putting another one down.
But also, like, you could.
Then you need the Borough Bound ping pong table, which you're that's like right. the $100 tier, $300 tier, whatever.
Yeah. If I was a player in one of those games, I would do that just to mess with my GM. I'd just be like, I'm going to have that encounter right there on the edge there. I'm going to step over that edge. Could you grab the other map again, please? Yeah. I forgot something, actually. Could we?
Yeah, I got to go back. I got to go back. Sorry, so sorry.
Like James, like how I feel like this is something that we talk about where we want the full maps, the full city maps to like look great and be usable. But we're also kind of thinking about each of the individual like map pieces as being uniquely good as right. Is there anything that you like, is there any, I don't know,
if on each map I'm doing like rule of thirds and all sorts. Like I'm trying to make them look compositionally really nice on their own.
Yeah, I was kind of curious, James, about your general process when you're approaching this, because I mean, this kind of goes back to something we were talking about earlier, but I do think that one thing that Borough Bound does nicely is that you blend the kind of generalized Western fantasy with more specifics in your settings, right? So like you have like Ilmorn, which like reminds me of like Bloodborne, Falthrangor, very northern, stark kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, when you're going through, I mean, you have to take this kind of like scientific cartographer's approach where you're thinking about your grids, you're thinking about spacing, things like that. But then also, like when you are planning out the aesthetics of the city, what's your process look like with that?
I try to keep it as loose as I possibly can at the beginning and have like as much fun as I can at the beginning, and realize that the longer I spend on this kind of like sketch phase, which is all just, the roofs are all just one block color. The roads are just one block color. Like it's really, really messy, big, thick, chunky lines. The longer I spend doing that, because, sometimes you're tempted to rush the sketch phase because you feel like I need to get to the actual main thing. But I've actually realized that the longer that you spend sketching, the more smoothly the finalizing goes on the other end. Like everything just goes so much quicker. You're fixing less errors. There are less problems. There are less compositional problems where halfway through you're like, oh man, that looks really weird. I'm going to have to change that. Change loads of work that you've done. So just, try to like really enjoy how easy the sketch phase is and take into account like all of the fun grid stuff that I like, the strategy stuff.
You're also working on, we do, James does mood boards for most of our settings too, so that our artists
the art direction side,
aesthetic. So it's really funny because we'll do like planning sessions. Because usually order of operations is I will start writing the text for a setting before James starts working on like the first maps. So we'll do like these planning sessions where I'll be explaining whatever nonsense stuff is in this place without having any real sense of the visuals yet. and then James will do even before like the sort of gritty sketch. James will do the world's worst like MS Paint sketch just to like block out rough dimensions.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm a bad artist, and these are as bad as my art. I mean, they're truly, but like it's so important because it's literally just getting a sense of like scale and like, oh, is there a chasm there? And like, oh, do we want like, is this like walls or like, or how are we thinking about elevation?
And like,
this probably needs some water.
How important is this building? Does this building need to be bigger? Does this building need to be smaller? Is that big enough? Like, how wide should the roads be?
When you have to be comfortable with being kind of sloppy because you're iterating really quickly, I'm assuming. Like you're probably just throwing stuff out as the ideas are being discussed, right?
What's that stupid website we use where we do like a communal drawing board?
Do you use Miro? Because that's what a lot of people use.
The name changed. Was it like Aggie?
It's Aggie.io by Magma. I hate the internet.
What?
AGGIE.io by Magma, and it used to be just called Magma.
It's cool. Several people can draw on the same canvas at the same time.
Yeah.
That's cool. They need a rap song to do the name though. You need like a beat to put the name to.
We're working on a rap city actually.
Yeah.
No way.
Really?
No, I wish. Who knows? You know,
we can talk. Let's talk.
Welcome.
We do a rough. We do a rough one for them. We do a rough like. Here's a more standard one that pretty much everyone can get behind, and then here's a weirder one. Is vaguely our release schedule with some exceptions.
And when you say one for us, one for them, often the for them is for me, and the for us is for you, because I really enjoy like the mundane fantasy villages because those are the type of camp like I love, the Game of Thrones look to everything. So I kind of like that dynamic that the one for us and the one for them is actually me and Will.
Different,
Right.
It's the thing that I'm sick of is which we talked about last time is
me.
It's James. He's ruining this.
That's what I was waiting for.
The thing that I'm sick of is just doing the same like forest exploration music over and over again, or like
I think last time you specifically said
medieval
tavern music.
Oh yeah, sure.
We had a big cliffhanger where I was like, I have written more than 10 tavern songs. It is, I believe, of last count in my spreadsheet that lists every track I've done. There are greater than 60 tracks that are tagged tavern. Now, tavern has many different valences.
Sure,
right? Sure. Come on, man. Come on.
I will edit in an air horn behind you, like a club siren when you say 60.
Actually, Will, since we have you, do you want us to add in some of your music over this? It would be helpful if you directed us.
Okay. No. Not
because we could.
Not
That's
because
all
I
I'm saying.
Like it or anything. It's an interview show. This is not.
No, when we're talking about the kinds of the themes of music, the forest, the tavern, because I do think it's interesting to think about like how many times can you hear fantasy? We talked about it last time, right? Fantasy, medieval European flute or whatever.
I mean, I really think that if you're listening to this podcast or watching this Twitch stream, like you have at some point in your life gone on YouTube and looked up like 24-hour tavern ambience or something, either because you were like studying for an exam or because you were GMing a session.
Right. No, I bring it up because I think it'd be interesting. Then we could also put like something that is different from that, and say this is what you mean when you say weirder. Well, still flute music's great, but you you do a lot of it, right? You don't just do you don't just do fantasy, which again, back to that original, didn't mean it to be an attack. Like it's not all D&D-ish in that sense. You do a lot of different settings, right? That's where I'm going with that.
I don't know. That's one thing that's been really fun about the art that we do and like the audience that we've cultivated can appreciate both, right? Because everyone needs like, here's a little forest village, but we have like this weird postal airship setting with like modular ships. And awesome. I don't know, like I hope that's fun for James, even if it's probably a lot more work.
I actually really enjoy doing those ones a lot. They feel like a little break. I don't know why. Like they feel like they're just so fun. And because with the main cities, they all have seams. We just call them seams where the maps attach. And in Photoshop, getting those to blend seamlessly is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And it's been like a learning process, like still up until now, I'm figuring things out and being like, why is it that these layers are this color on this PSD and on the next map, they've all changed. It doesn't make any sense.
You're using the same profiles, like nothing's...
Yeah, and I just can't figure it out. But so the Limonarch stuff, the airships, there's no seams. It's all just, they're free floating. They're free floating ships, and I just get to just totally relax and get really creative and silly with these wacky ships. I love doing those.
Can we talk about the seams real quick, James? Because I don't know. I feel like I'm sure there are like artists.
Yeah, I mean, I'm genuinely interested in like hearing more of the technical side of the process, as well as like, communication between y'all as a team. Because again,
that's one reason we brought you on. Yeah, sorry, Chris. Go. Yeah.
Well, shadows determine the direction that we have to make our maps. We had to
figure that out, didn't we? It was on map City 3 or 4.
Yeah, with City 2, with Cadizi, we did a snake pattern for the order. We released like the Northwest map, then the Northeast map, and then the Southeast map, and then the Southwest map. So we did we did it clockwise, and we realized because buildings from the west were casting shadows to the east, James didn't know where to place shadows if he was doing a map that was east of something he hadn't done yet.
Right.
And that's just like, it seems like such a silly, stupid little thing, but that required so much like editing after the fact to make sure that the final maps actually fit together. Or like we're updating one of our earliest cities right now. That's a Why We Roll exclusive. And James's art style has evolved a bit. And so James has had to, I feel like it was an entire workday that you were just trying to like blend this new map that slots into an old city.
And that was funny because it's the first city that we did. So it was all flat colors, not many textures, really simple. Like,
is this,
this is Medinfirth.
Okay, I was going to ask if it was Medinfirth. Yeah.
Knowing your release schedule, we'll have announced this elsewhere before the podcast goes live.
Maybe we'll just mess around just for you and get this out tomorrow. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
So we're trying. I basically since then, instead of it just being a flat grass texture, I've now have like a textured grass texture with loads of like grass leaves and stuff. So when we come back to Medinfirth, I'm like, do I go textured grass texture or do I go flat grass texture? And I realized that actually doing flat colors was going to be more work. So I've basically just kind of like blurred it through. And we just decided patrons will understand. Like our style has changed. It fits. It looks good.
Yeah. But also this is sort of like we're doing the wilderness outside of the city. And I have a strong suspicion once we stitch everything together, once we finish these updates, that seeing like the city in the middle and then the wilderness outside of it having sort of two slightly different art styles is going to look cool. It's going to specifically look like it was a choice when in fact it was like, oh no, James just we have grown as creators. And like I'm sure the text I have since updated the text of the original, but like, even the writing has changed,
Yeah, and that's also, I mean, if you think about the difference between wilderness and city, it sounds like maybe that could be used to highlight a difference there. Like there's different grasses that live in cities than just outside cities, depending where you are.
It looks good. It looks fine.
But I love that. I love that you have to like, ape your own style because you change over time as an artist. And again, that's the difference, I think, between an artist doing art, a GM doing homebrew stuff for friends, and like a business where you do want that continuity or brand management because, what if a different artist subbed out because you're on vacation for a while, it's like, it makes sense why you would want to regularize it and have like a rule about, okay, this is how we do grass. But it also is cool to think about like you are still a person doing art, making choices, learning, deciding, I like this more than that. And you guys have just done so much.
I'll actually say as well, like my art style changed in a bad way because I pushed it way too far. Like I was hitting levels of like detail and realism that basically burnt me out.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't think to stop. Like there was nothing, I just didn't think ahead. Like I wasn't able to be consistent with that. And so I've been talking a lot recently about pulling that back loads. Like I'm trying to get back to a thicker line art, flatter colors, less textures, because I just couldn't keep it up. Like,
and what's crazy is like, so there, it's unambiguously true that a setting like Zahuatl Ruins is like an order of magnitude more detailed, like on a fine scale, than one of our early settings like Menfirth. But like the aesthetic is not unambiguously better for the more detailed one. I like both a lot, but it's just different. And if it's, this is where business stuff comes in. If it's like two different aesthetics and both are really good and one of them is like 1/10 of the work, you should be doing the 1/10 of the work version.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah. And also like detail doesn't make a good piece of art. Nope. Composition makes a good piece of art. And you can get
a usable TTRPG product, right?
Right. Yeah. You can get totally lost in thinking that I need the most amazing realistic details. Actually, on social media, at a glance, what people care about is a composed picture that's going to grab their attention. They're not going to scroll past something and be like, I wonder if that's got loads of detail if I zoom in. Like, no one really cares about that except me. So I'm burning out for me.
Yeah, some people really enjoy, like I enjoy that as well. But I think that also comes from being an illustrator and being a technical artist where it's like, this is kind of for me, and it's easy to get lost in the sauce with that. But I think you're right. Composition and just basic shape language really is enough to grab people. And I think that when you're blending it with evocative writing and scenarios and,
This is the same thing for music too, where so much of, this is something that I feel very strongly about that I will get super annoying about. And a lot of people will be like, shut the hell up. But I think across the spectrum from total lay people with regards to art and complete and like full experts like professors and masters and whatnot, there is an underappreciation for low level features in all forms of art, in all media. The most important thing about music is not like, well, what sort of harmonic language are you using in terms of like, and this is like neuroscience, like proven, but like the thing people react to the most is just volume. Like when you listen to music, is it really, really loud when you heard it, or was it really quiet, right? If you go to see an orchestra live, were they extremely loud or were they doing quiet stuff? Like that is the thing that humans respond to the most. And that doesn't mean to make good music, you just either make it louder or you either make it quiet. But the point is like people respond to these really basic features such as, what is the broad frequency spectrum of a piece of music? What is the contrast of a piece of art? Right. And the difference in success and quality of a lot of creators, again, across media, is failure to pay attention to those sorts of details, right? Like we have so many peers who make great maps, and the maps are detailed and the maps are tactically interesting, but like the values will just be so obviously wrong and just like not pop at all. And those artists are not as successful, like not 1-to-1, but if you have good values and good composition, you're like 90% of the way there.
Well, I think there's two different notes from what you're saying, because I think one is you do have to master these basics. There's things that are more important than others in terms of getting people's attention and capturing it in any artistic medium. And with TTRPG map making, there's going to be a few specific things that like you have to nail, and then there's more optional stuff that you can get lost in the sauce with that's fun. But it may not like matter that much to your bottom line or to like the use case for the GM and the players at the table.
Right.
But I do think that stuff. Then there's a separate note about like artistry, where you could say, if I was doing this again as an art project versus a homebrew thing for friends versus a product, I would do it. I mean, James, like you're saying, you could get really detailed, go really nuts, do really crazy stuff, but it would take so long that part of the business of RPGs is like, you do have to decide ultimately, okay, I'm not gonna, and I'm just thinking like I'm working on, I'm laying out something I wrote a while ago now, and it's like I could write a million more options and tech. I mean, I love writing random tables, but it's like it doesn't, there's a point where it just is too much, and I just need to get this out. And I think learning how to do that is part of this sort of personal development from like, hey, I love RPGs and I make cool stuff for them and I'm genuinely good at something, to like I can sell it. Because if you can't master the time, but
for the product, I mean, it's obvious, Wythe, and I know you figured this out. No matter how good your text is or how creative your tables are, in the case of, just because that's one of your particular skills, it has to at least be like typo free and laid out well.
Right.
Those
exactly.
are the sort of low level features
Bare
that I'm
minimum.
talking about. Where it's like if I'm making music, there are tracks in my library that I'm not like maximally proud of course, but I'm at a place where I simply don't release stuff that isn't well mastered, right? Exactly. Mastering is the final phase of my, production pipeline, and is generally what you call the last phase of finishing recorded music. And that's the difference between some of my music and people in the TTRPG music space who mostly just don't like, who lack the expertise, just don't know any better. But if you can at least master something well, even if it's like, well, those chords are boring, and that melody, not your best. If it's mastered well, most people will listen and be like, yeah, sounds good, at least.
Or at least
it sounds
it's
professional.
at least inoffensive, right? Like it's there and it's not going to bother you.
So it's both the bare minimum and it's also most of the way to the destination, right? And I think that goes for a lot of art as well, like
totally.
Like James, like when you're so as art director, James, gives feedback for our illustrators when they're designing NPCs or landscapes or whatever, and I think we're broadly very happy with all of our art. But there's sometimes where we're just like, we just got to go to print. What are the James, like let's just like focus on NPCs. Like what are the things that you need to make sure at least that is finished before we start going to layout?
I think a sense of character, like you want and mood in that character. Like if that character is meant to be doing something specific or getting a certain like mood across, then it's important that they have that like facial expression, and when you look at that character you're like, oh, that's a really joyful character, or that's a really moody character. I think that's one of the main things, because you're drawn to the face of a character. That's the first thing you look at, and so you want to be able to see that character, and just any glaring like weird hands, backwards feet, like bent legs, like anything like that, that's like anything that really stands out to you, it's like that's gotta be fixed. But then there are certain things where you're just like, and definitely for me as like first time art director, like at first I was just like, everything must be perfect. Like we have to put out the most perfect product, like, and it'd be back and forth. And now I'm at a point where I realize like I'm being way too much of a perfectionist on other people's work as well. So yeah, exactly. Like there's a point where I sometimes have to look at it and think, oh no, that's great. That is great. Why am I being such a perfectionist on this? This isn't really fair.
Especially because we're at least at the point where like, our artists are like their line weight is good. Like that's one of those ones where like, well, if this is going to be sitting next to text and like other illustrations, like stuff like that should at least be, or like consistent proportions for fantasy races, right? We have a very funny style guide for that James has put together for like how tall various fantasy races
how big
be in relation to each other, and like what is it, a human is 7.5 heads tall or whatever, right?
I think
is that what it is?
Six or
whatever.
It should be 6.5, I think.
Okay, I thought there was a half.
That's like the typical like drawing 101, right? Like you stack the length of a head up to get So
we have that for other creatures too. Nice. Like a halfling is like 2.5 heads tall.
Well, no. Oh right, because it doesn't. Yeah, when the smaller you go, obviously like a gnome's head is almost as big as his body, so it's like a gnome is only 2 heads tall, or like it just doesn't. Yeah, I'm really enjoying drawing those. Fantasy race anatomy things. They're great fun. They're like the classic like arms out type thing.
Would you ever publish those? Like share those?
I want to publish.
We just want to finish it up.
Once we get a few nice races and stuff at Hunt, we could probably put some of them on there now.
James has the way it's drawn right now. There's like you can see the height in feet roughly to the side, and
like
it's a bunch of naked guys standing next to each other, so it looks like they're all about to be processed at the county prison.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that, but I remember very specifically in 3rd edition D&D Player's Handbook, there is a diagram that they did similar. It's not like the how many heads tall is it to draw it, but it's like roughly it looks like they're just in a lineup at county.
It's exactly it does look like they're in a lineup. I mean, I think that's a these genre hangovers that we talk about from D&D that just like everyone grew up with, or not many of us grew up with.
Part of the reason we did this is because James and I both feel strongly that one of the height discrepancies in D&D is just wrong. Like they call gnomes taller than halflings in 5th edition, which just feels
that
instinctively
totally wrong.
It's bizarre. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wizards, what are you doing?
That's one of the reasons we need to have we have our we do not stick strictly always by fantasy canon, but we do like to stick pretty strictly to at least our own canon fantasy. One of those things is in all of our settings, for a reason that I think will be clear to most listeners of this podcast, goblins do not have long or crooked noses.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Right. They've got flat nostrils, basically.
Right. And that solves 2 problems in one.
Little pig noses.
One is, it goes some way towards removing at least the aesthetic portion of baked in anti-Semitism in fantasy. And 2, it defines our style guide, right? These are what our goblins look like. And 3, it's just a thing about our art, right? It's not those goblins. That's BB, right?
It makes more sense to me because it makes them look more like little creatures rather than small human people. I like the way they look with these flat animal noses.
That's why I've always been a fan of the pig-faced orc.
Yeah.
I will always take a pig-faced orc over the Peter Jackson humanoid kind of there's something more magical or more less mundane about them that I really like.
Less problematic.
Maybe.
I see.
I looked it up. I just want anybody listening or watching to know I was wrong. Will, you were correct. The average adult human is 7 to 7.5 heads tall, according to Systematized Anatomy for Artists.
I'll fire myself now.
I have not ever taken an art class in any capacity. So, chalking that up to probably reading some tweet from a racist.
There's an argument to be made that they're connected. So we can get into that another time, maybe.
Yeah. We probably have. James, what are the things that are hard about working on Borough Bound that you didn't have to do when you worked for Games Workshop? Obviously, Games Workshop had a lot of made certain things very difficult for you when you were working on that web comic. But
they were quite difficult to work for.
But there's probably stuff that's specifically difficult doing art for Borough Bound that is maybe unique to how we do stuff.
It's just it's just completely different. It's just not the same. There's nothing the same, really. The only thing you could say is the same is that I'm drawing things.
Yeah.
Right.
Because now, I'm running stuff with Will. I'm art directing and making decisions that I was never making while drawing comics for Warhammer. Drawing these maps is just vastly different from drawing comics. I actually don't miss drawing comics. Comics is hard, really, really hard. And I don't think I would actually ever do it. I think I've tried because I really wanted to be a comic book artist. That was what I was going to do. And I was really, really trying really hard to get into that, working with loads of indie publishers and stuff. And after doing it, I'm just no.
Is it the volume of work that you have to do that's so hard? Or
it's the volume of work that you have to do. It's the consistency and stuff, and it's the amount you get paid. You see it all the time. Pretty famous comic book artists and stuff like that. They say this is not a well-paid job, but I do it because I love it. And I just don't think I could do that really. And this, the reason that I started doing maps was because I was drawing them for my home games and enjoying it, which is not what I was doing with comics. That was just something that I thought was cool and I really liked the way they look. Whereas this was born out of something that I already was really loving doing. Now I barely use maps in my games. I much prefer theatre of the mind because I much prefer story and narrative. And I love how fast things move in theatre of the mind. As soon as you get a map out, it's just people are just staring at the screen, counting squares and oh, I don't know. And it's just just make a decision.
So how do you kind of circle that square with Borough Bound, like, are there things that y'all include that kind of like push theater of the mind, or is that something that y'all think about?
I don't think we have to. Like, so I do think, based on some internal data that we have, most of our players, a majority, but not a vast majority, are using our content with a virtual tabletop.
Okay.
Because they're doing so, it seems we didn't specifically ask the survey question in this way, but it stands to reason most of them are using our maps much of the time, or using maps, period, much of the time, probably a mixture from a few different creators. Given that, I think that our settings work really well for Theater of the Mind because they have the full setting map available for the Theater of the Mind. Like, Theater of the Mind doesn't mean like we have no sense of space, right? I think it's really important to establish a sense of space with Theater of the Mind. But you can just be like, here's the city, but we're not using like a grid or whatever.
Yeah.
I think our stuff is really good for that because
that's how I use, because I'm running a campaign in Ilmorn, and I sometimes use the map for like a gridded combat in like one tiny area of the street. Yeah. But mostly I'm just using the whole city and being like, you're over here, you're in this building. Or if someone's confused about where they are in the city, I'll get the map up and I'll be like, you're down here. Works really well for that.
And because we also provide two things that I think are really useful for Theater of the Mind, which is, well, three things. All of the text, which gives you notes about how you might use our settings. All of the music, which Theater of the Mind does not preclude the use of music, I think, and art that you can incorporate in other ways. Mm-hmm. Like I've heard so many people like to print out some of our we have a folder where you can just access all of the art that we've created.
Oh, that's
just
great.
like just the PNGs or JPEGs of our characters and like the scenes and like stuff like in-universe art we have a lot of. So here's a mosaic that is in our PDF because mosaics look cool, but the mosaic is meant to be sort of diegetic. Like, this is literally a mosaic from these people, right? Mm-hmm. And hearing from people that they print those out and just like put those on the table as a sort of visual reference.
Yeah, it's like handouts. Yeah, that
cool.
bring the universe to life.
Theater of the Mind still? Yeah, I think that's still Theater of the Mind. But
I love handouts.
Yeah,
but that's great. It just feels we talked about this with Alchemy as well, which is another virtual tabletop, which gives you the flexibility to use maps, but is not like map first, where Roll20 and Foundry are very much like, you come here for the maps, and then we got a bunch of additional functionality. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Alchemy is really like multimedia and like user experience forward and I don't mean that dismissively at all. I think that's great, but that means like you can focus on like, here's just like, we're putting up a picture of an NPC and we're playing some music and there's a subtle animation, and in many ways like that's just as evocative for immersing your players, which is the goal, I think, of our content.
It's also like you're balancing what your players want, because you may love Theatre of the Mind, but I have some players who really struggle without a map. They just can't wrap their head around what's happening in the space. Like, did some experiments with when I was like getting into Theatre of the Mind combat, and I really enjoyed the combat, but there were a few people who were just like, I don't understand where any of the enemies are. And that's because some people have like varying degrees of like aphantasia and stuff where they literally can't picture things in their mind. So it's trying to find the balance of what you enjoy and what your players enjoy.
I keep a spreadsheet when I'm running combat. So I my combat is all like Google Sheets forward, just for me keeping my own notes, just like every person, their initiative, their HP, any like status effects or whatever, and then just location. And location is a description. I'll be like up in Cherry's Grill. Is like we'll literally write that, or like surrounded by pretty much everybody, or way the hell away on a rooftop. And then I will say that when it's like an NPC's turn or whatever, and then the players will be like, wait, so am I like close enough to hit that guy with a melee attack? And then just make a ruling. Just be like, sure.
Yeah.
Or say no, you'd have to use your movement to get to them.
But even then you get those players who are like, I know I want to know.
Right, and that's
am.
when some visual is useful, or just like, draw a friggin' picture.
Well, and James, I think it's also a good point. Like, people do have aphantasia. Like, I was having a conversation with a client of mine a couple of weeks ago, and she has aphantasia.
Right.
And this was a tattoo client. So like in an email correspondence, I was like describing what we were going to do, whatever. And she came in, she was like, I had no idea. Like, I'm glad I can see it now. And she's also an RPG player. We talked about, like, okay, well, you use maps. Like how does that structure your sessions? Like, how does that change things? And yeah, I mean, I think it's good that there's options for every possibility coming into the material that y'all are making.
And modularity is the point, right? I think for all things tabletop, the more you can provide, like, I think it's always good. Wythe is about to smile so much at this. I think it's always good, even if you're being in some capacity prescriptive with your world building, like, in this world, stuff works like this, like magic works like this. Even if you're doing that, like, having a table just to help GMs customize or introduce flexibility, or should they desire, introduce some randomness. Any ability you have to give GMs the flexibility to either account for discrepancies with how they want to run their campaigns, or with, like, I don't know, sensitivity issues, or like, just make things flexible. I really like the main version of all of our maps that we do. I know with certainty for a few of our maps, one of the variants is more popular. And I want to be like, well, I like the main version that we did. That one was like the one we spent the most, but whatever, if people want to use the variant, like, cool, fine.
Yeah, that's the beauty.
Giving them the flexibility is the point.
Sometimes I'll draw the map and I'll be like, that looks wicked. And then Amber will do a variant and I'm like, oh, that looks better. Like, the variant is better.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, sometimes any of the snow ones, I'm just like, the snow always just looks...
Snow ones always look good, yeah.
It's epic.
We try to do winter variants whenever possible, and they're just,
Desert often looks really cool. Like, desert often makes things look really... Shadowfell, I just love Shadowfell. Like, anything dark and spooky.
We did this, we talked about this last time, we did this setting, Brimspur, which is Cowboys in Hell. And it's like a hellish sort of
as
vibe.
They should be.
As they should.
Nice. Go to hell, colonizers. So it was, surrounded by lava, because our default version of hell was surrounded by lava. But we did different versions of hell. So we did like a kind of Styx version of it, where it's surrounded by like a river of souls. And then Amber, who does our variant arts, did like here's if it was in like the Wild West. Like, here's just like, vaguely Western American desert. And it's like, shit, that looks so good. But that's the thing, right? Like, sometimes default fantasy just whips, right? Sometimes tropes are cool and are aesthetically, like, assuming they're not problematic, right? Sometimes tropes are cool and aesthetically pleasing and more ripe for storytelling. Sometimes just like, when you're GMing for a party and it's like, there's a human fighter who wears friggin' armor, there's a halfling rogue who's got like a knife and a bow, and there's like a moody friggin' elf wizard who went to school for a long time, and it's like, that's the party. Sometimes it's just like, we are operating on such a wavelength where it's so traditional. This just gives us the flexibility to explore more interesting storytelling in everything else that we do, right?
I run a lot of all human campaigns, because I love the players experiencing things as a human. So when they do see a giant demon monster thing, it feels more crazy, because everything up until that point has been quite mundane. I love my players starting off as like a chimney sweep or a baker or something, because you get those players who are just like, I'm already a hero and I have a unicorn and I have a fire sword and I can jump 50 feet in the air. It's like, no, you want to start off as a baker or like a street cleaner or something, because then you build to that absolutely crazy stuff. And that's why I do quite enjoy, like, or at least like a very traditional, like dwarves, elves, humans or something, because
that's then levels there's places to go.
That's also fun for the power curve too, because you can, if mechanically characters are advancing like crazy but they're still who they were, like, I have a very long running campaign in it's a setting of mine that's really weird. It's from Arcus Wythe, which Wythe contributed to.
I loved Arcus.
One of the players is a former miner. I guess we're all former miners, but miner with an E, like pickaxe. He's a former miner who has a bum ankle, and he's like, he's so powerful. He's got like all this crazy magic and legendary weapons and stuff. But every once in a while, he'll be like, "Yeah, I walk slowly because my ankle still hurts from that mining incident, like years ago in real time and months ago in game." And I'm like, "That's great. That's so good. That's so good that you can have like 1,000 HP." But my ankle hurts, brother. Like you can't long rest your way out of that.
You can't long rest your way out of that. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt, man. That's good stuff. Maybe we can do a Why We Roll Borough Bound collab t-shirt. Collab shirt, yeah.
Definitely.
Can't long rest your way out of that. Oh my god,
that is great.
Well, it's funny thinking about narratives and starting lower power and having some place to go in terms of story, because completely agree. There's got to be, even if you start with a lot of powers, like in D&D and like Stillfleet, you start with a lot of things you can do that normal people kind of can't because you're like a mercenary. But I mean, you're kind of not powerful in the grand scheme of society,
right?
And in D&D, you're Conan, right? You're a murder hobo, just wandering around the woods killing goblins or whatever. And I think that works because you build up. It makes me think of back to what you're saying about like, having to do sort of medieval town in order to then have the dessert of like, okay, crazy airship in space. You want to give people somewhere with maps where they can really quickly sort of imagine like, okay, there is the tavern, there's the starting point for first level or 0th level in a grinder like PCs, and then they're going to go to the infinite cavern of hell with the snow zombies or whatever the hell. And so it sounds like that's something that you guys keep having to come back to in different visual regimes, which is like in a way contrasting high fantasy or just any speculative genre with some sort of normalcy that people can quickly see, like, oh, this is useful, or I know how to sort of use it.
We're doing that right now, where we're working on a setting that is like really specifically built to be a starter town. It's a very simple setting. And I think this is one of the ones that James really liked to make, because it's like grass and here's a hut. And
dude, are the roofs thatched?
Oh, they're thatched.
Thatched all the way.
Thatched
up. The setting, but it's meant to be a setting that you revisit. Like there are, in the lore, the city progresses through time, so you can come back, and it's sort of expected that you're going to be like crazy wizards or whatever. But these people don't have friggin' magic, right? They're farmers. The most interesting thing that happened was there was like a wedding last year. And I like, that's so fun because I think it's still so useful as you're ramping up the power curve to have those contrasts persist. Right?
Yeah.
So we really want to frame this setting as like, make this your starter town. Have one of your PCs be from here. Have this be the place where they get given their first quest, and have it be really mundane. But then like come back in a little bit, and the town will have progressed. Now there's a tavern here, but like it hasn't progressed the way you've progressed, right? Like you have slain demons, and it's like, bro, we got a paved road now. Have you seen this? And like, the paladin with a bum ankle and 1,000 HP is like, cool, but that's great. Like I think that is like a very fun narrative, and it's at most like maybe 15 minutes in a session where you're devoting this to like role play, where you're experiencing like how the world has changed for the common folk, but that adds like meaning, right?
Well, I really like settings and adventure modules and things like that keep the world moving behind the player character, or rather around the player characters, right? Like I think that there's something inherently interesting about that, where it's like the world doesn't necessarily revolve around you. Like you're doing cool shit for sure, but also like people live their lives and change happens slow. Like I don't know. I just like that's even being pushed there. I kind of wish more modules would do that. You see it. You see it in some places, but.
And I would say, that's where it doesn't have, it could be more than 50 minutes. It could be the whole game is, something crazy about this wedding that doesn't require the skill set of someone who is 15th level and can summon and slay devils.
Right.
It requires the skill set of like someone who can investigate a small town mystery, or someone who can be empathetic, or, and I think that's when, push and pull you can have with settings. And I also visualize them as maps, although, as Will knows, mine are like weird hand drawn abstractions, but it's trying to think through like where might different kinds of interactions interactions take place. And again, it's cool to see how you guys have done that at a high level across many different kinds of settings. But it's a lot of combat, sort of, you could have a fight here, but a lot of it is even playing through Soot and Bear, like I was thinking of how we've used the Twilight Bethel or the Tavern, or, where do different sort of talky scenes take place where people do lean in and think, okay, what is the mood in this essentially church, right, or in this pub?
There's also, I wonder how many people use our content like this, and this is often how I use our content when I'm GMing like Borough Bound stuff, is we won't play with tokens. I have literally never GM'd a session with tokens. I have in real life done minis on a grid, and the minis are just like your die, right? Like your dice, and then like little pieces of paper. Maybe I like doing that in person sometimes, but like online, truly theater of the mind. But sometimes I'll whip out like a Borough Bound map or whatever and say like, here's where you are. We're not going to use tokens, but like I can point on the map and show you where you are. And then when a player goes, oh, like that scroll over there, like, can I touch that? And going like, either no, that ignore that scroll. That's like not anything, or that's very rare. More frequently, I'll go, yeah, man, go look at that scroll, right? Like just as a visual indicator, because ultimately, even the most profoundly gifted orator GM can't say everything that's in a space, and they might not want to imply that everything in a map is very literally there. But giving your players the flexibility, especially if they're kind of stumped on a role-playing scenario of like what they ought to interact with, just giving them some visual stimulus that they can react to, I think is very freeing, especially for a certain type of player who has trouble imagining everything. They can't just say like, is there like a chandelier here I can swing on? Like if they see that there are the beams and the light, and maybe they'll go, oh, I bet that light has to be cast by a chandelier, right? Probably a bad example because we don't depict chandeliers in our maps, but something equivalent. Right? Like
now you have to.
Now you have to. You could also ask people what's in the room, and that's where I do use your maps very differently in that way, where I would I would focus more on like, let's build the room together as opposed to like, look at what's drawn, not because the drawing is not good. It's just, it is constraining in that sense to me, and it goes against the idea of, and I think again, I think there are different points about accessibility in aphantasia versus sort of best practice for the middle of the bell curve, most players, where I think there's enough fantastic capability in ourselves to collectively create a story that is richly dressed. And I think it's just finding sort of, but I think it's interesting to build maps that you could do either with, right? You could say there literally is depicted, a rucksack in the corner, I'm going to go loot it, versus, hey, has anyone left something interesting around? I don't know, roll will to check. You know what I mean? Like,
well, the most common scenario, when I'm GMing is always improvisation on everyone's part, right? Like, if someone's in a library and says like, is there a scroll? The answer is yes. Determining what that scroll is might mean I will say, what sort of scroll are you looking for? And they go, anything about, this faction. And I can either say, well, roll to look for something for that faction, or we can leave this to luck and just see like, are you in the section that is about that faction? And either one works.
I sometimes base the fact that it's there or not on the success or not of like an investigation roll.
Totally. Yes. Right. And
I'll decide in my head, I'll just treat that as a luck roll, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know, my players by now know the sorts of things that I like to treat as random, the sorts of things that I like to put in their hands. And then, there are some things where it's like, no, GM fiat, like I am telling you, these dwarves do not know about this topic or whatever, right? But I think space is tricky for that, because when you as a GM have established a place as being plot every place is plot relevant, right? But like there are certain things that must exist in a place and that must not exist in a place, and everything else, like it's whatever's going to make the game fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's where, and again, that's what I was saying with maps, where I think it's cool to have the option of there are things in the room depicted on the map, but I think I would say it's best practice to challenge people to like feel empowered to imagine stuff is generally going to work better in practice, unless you're running very set scenarios that have very like map driven clues. But I wasn't to contradict, like it's cool to have the detail if you can do that,
Yeah, I love making players feel like their characters have loads of agency.
Yeah.
But I also love making my players feel like they are collaborating with me on a story.
Right.
James, are you still running that Weird West campaign?
It's on a break because I just got way too burnt out. So I'm mostly playing now.
So when you were playing that Weird West campaign, did you find that like your players know some Western tropes, right? Did you think that made it like easier to do group improvisation because like, well, you know, like we know what this wagon looks like probably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. And everyone's got their idea of what their favorite, like those guys just love Westerns and they love horror. It's set in a completely fictional world. It just has a very kind of Victorian aesthetic to it in a very desert country. It's all vampires and stuff.
Kind of dark towery, kind of
very dark tower.
That's
so
cool.
many like so much inspiration from Dark Tower.
I've a couple of games. I'll send it to you later. But a friend of mine wrote a kind of Dark Tower vampire Western game that you might be into called Blood.
100%.
It's called Bloodbeam Badlands by Vidicia Violetti. Really cool game. Still trying to get them on the cast. We'll get there someday.
Yeah, we're still trying.
But yeah, check it out. Also, everybody out there, check it out. It's great.
I'm also developing a entirely new world with 3 players because we're thinking about starting a podcast, just a live play podcast.
If you need any music.
Yeah. If you ever want to do a crossover, you know, do an episode with us, we'd love to play or do like a side, you know, random thing.
What's the vibe of the world? This is the first time hearing about this.
The vibe of the world is very sort of gritty, medieval, archaic, but it's kind of like cyberpunk city reskinned with gritty, archaic, medieval. So everything is powered by the arcane.
But not steampunky. It's like
it doesn't look steampunky. Everything's like wooden beams, tiles, like proper medieval. But all the kind of like emerging technology is arcane, and there's all these problems with like I call it arcane sludge, which is basically the stuff that's coming, like the pollution that's coming off using this technology, and is just like running through the sewers and is warping reality and stuff like that. It's very kind of like dark Terry Pratchett, I think.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I'm really excited about it.
Awesome.
I've been leaning more towards using like medieval fantasy tropes, but combining that with other stuff, just because like systematizing the mechanics of a guy with a sword just feels easier to me than like everybody has cell phones and laser guns and like if it's just like everybody has swords, but like one of my main campaigns right now is just like it's a Western kind of, it's like a frontier story, but it's medieval, so like everyone still has like armor and there's like no guns. Everyone's got like, you know, bows and arrows and crossbows and regular armor. But like that allows you to tell, you know, frontier kind of Western narratives, but in a mechanical scenario that feels, and you can rely on like the tropes of both. And, you know, there's knights and there are cowboys and there are night cowboys, you know, and I don't know, that to me just feels like you're like doubling the potential for folks to grab onto stuff, to extrapolate.
It's very much like, it was very much, the kind of the way I'm thinking about it is really inspired by something Brandon Sanderson said, which was that he just likes to combine genres. For the Mistborn, he was just like, I love heist films, like modern heist films, and I love fantasy, and he was just talking about how he combined that and just created something that was like interesting.
I read that interview after I read Mistborn, and I was like, the whole time I was listening, I was like, this is just like grimdark Ocean's 11. And then, and then for him to be like, Yeah. I was trying to make Dark Fantasy Ocean's 11. I was like, oh shit,
great.
okay, that was right. Cool.
Yeah, I nailed it.
Nailed
it.
it.
I don't think I think at the level of abstraction, though, Will, you could abstract guns and swords equally easily. But I agree that it's cool to combine genres and give people different tropes. And I think one of the reasons and the problems, like I have, for example, with Western, is it is a modern. It's like, what era are we talking about? After the Civil War with modern guns, or before the Civil War? Which era?
When I say
colonial...
Western, I mean this is a story about like various levels of oppression, and then with like themes of loneliness and like the world is leaving you behind, right? Like a big theme of this is just like back in not the West, in like the kingdom where everyone's like from, or all the the colonizers are from, like shit is getting really different. And here, like city is the city in the frontier is like already becoming a relic of the past, and that's like a Western theme. Doing that with like knights and stuff, that's just funny.
No, yeah, and I mean it is creepy. I was trying to say, what I was gonna say is like I think there's a lot you can do with from like as a social scientist, like a historian, you can break apart these ideas of like sci-fi or modern or medieval. These spans of time are ridiculous. Like modern's only about 150 years, or depends. Or what are you talking about? But even within that, you'd have all of these huge jumps in technologies and crazy world systems shakeups. And then when you go back to like the early modern, or the properly like medieval or classical or whatever, you have like so many civilizations and so much to choose from. And I think one of the things that I like hybridizing is even just taking those elements, and I think that's one of the things that was successful with Stillfleet, was like thinking about different kinds of science fictional tropes and how they interact, as opposed to saying it's just whatever you want sci-fi, which is like fun to pitch. Like it's fun for players to be like, it's whatever you want sci-fi, but the way the book is written is trying to carefully like use certain things and not others, and kind of create weird hybrids that could work together but you haven't necessarily seen, so that it does stand out a bit. And I'd like to think we do that, like Chris, like we're working on like a fantasy game, and it's the same idea. It's like it can't just be D&D, because D&D is like a weird thing that never was, or just straight up like we'll just recapitulate all the evil crap that happened in Western Europe.
Well, especially especially for Dance Macabre, where it's supposed to be historical fantasy, where it's like we're actually dealing with like real politic of like religious persecution and.
But you can pick and choose different things from different cultures and times, and make like, okay, what is a fun game experience? And that's exactly what it sounds like you're doing, right? So it sounds awesome, the idea of the medieval knights with crossbows, but they're working out those same themes, like at a personal level of like loneliness, like you said, and then societally they're like facing like, oh crap, we're doing some bad stuff, guys.
I also really like if you're gonna take like an overused genre or trope or something. If you want to take it somewhere new, one of the best things to do is just parody.
Yeah.
That but not in like a totally like slapstick abstract way, but in like writers like Joe Abercrombie. I feel like his books are super gritty and serious, but
they're straight.
They
parody.
do feel like a parody of
they're
medieval.
And those are also books that rely so heavily on tropes, right? Like those are the tropiest books.
Yeah,
and
but
that
then he
allows
subverts them.
Right, you subvert them, and it's just like, okay, there's a big. Oh, I don't want to do spoilers. Shit. Don't read those books. James is the one who told me to read them, and they're fabulous.
They're really fun. But they are. I think they're very intentionally parody.
Yes, but they're very usefully. It like usefully deploys tropes.
Yes,
it is. Hey. 100%. You think you know who this wizard guy is, and that will be useful moving forward, because you and I, meaning Joe Abercrombie and the reader, we're on the same page about I know what you're expecting, and you know what I know that you're expecting. So let's cut to the chase. Here's what's different, right?
Yeah.
That's so satisfying, and I think that like that's the world that tabletop can really live in effectively, because you can communicate with your players. Hey, what do we all accept as the baseline reality? Do we accept that this is a world where knights are honorable? Probably not. If so, how do we, what do we need to roll for, in order for you to understand this, right?
Yeah, or like what even is a knight? Like to the what I mean, like a knight could at different times, like a writer who had a certain role in feudal societies looked very different in Merovingian France 300 years later in the UK or France or Germany, or at the same time in China. And I think there's a lot of interesting like places to go with just like unpacking some of those tropes.
Absolutely.
And also parodying them and parodying different aspects of them. Even going, Monty Python did a fantastic job of parodying like late medieval stuff and just the physicality of like
James, I don't know. I don't know if
like
you know
not
this.
having a horse.
That was not a history. That was.
What?
Yeah,
dude,
it was like half, right?
So,
the grenades part was real.
Yeah, the holy hand grenade is real. Yeah, definitely.
If you throw the holy hand grenade in a hallway, the damage is
Oh, yeah, there's a table for that. There's a table.
Get out.
Well, that feels like it's over an hour and a half, guys, so I don't know, just time check in. We should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
But, I could talk all day, but is there anything that we haven't covered that y'all wanted to sort of get to?
We should plug our Kickstarter,
Give it a proper plug.
We do not have a good, we don't have blistercritters.com like White does, so we cannot give a good URL. But if you go to our Patreon, patreon.com/boroughbound, you'll get links to, also just like follow our Patreon. If any of this sounds good, if you don't give a shit about any of this, but you like music, look up Borough Bound on Spotify. If you don't like any of this except the text, you're gonna have to subscribe to our Patreon because that's available. If you just want the maps, you can buy those on Roll20. If you want any of this, you can get it on Alchemy, and just go to Patreon. It's the best place to get our stuff.
We will link the Patreon in the show notes.
Thank you. That's
sure.
nice.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, it's Borough Bound. It's if you Google Borough Bound Patreon, it's gonna pop up.
James, are you releasing new like asset packs or anything? I just saw you posted a bunch of new NPC tokens. Are you selling those?
Yeah, so I just posted on my Instagram and stuff. Just NPC tokens that I use in my games. And I just thought, I've got so many of them, I should probably try and make some money out of them.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Cool. You got some goblins on Roll20, right?
Yeah. But I'm thinking of just firing up my old Patreon again and just maybe becoming like a tokens patron.
Oh, yeah.
Just release batches of tokens every month. Because I've got such a nice backlog now.
Yeah, they're so good.
That's great.
They're so characterful.
Yeah. So that's definitely something I'm considering.
James, before we wrap, I looked it up. Nobody has coined this yet. You can have this. Arcanopunk.
Arcanopunk. Yeah, I think it's I always write Arcane Punk.
Arcane Punk is what comes up, but that's lame.
Right.
No, but using the Latin, the O to join the thing sounds a lot better. Imho. I think Chris is correct here, but
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
It's just a humble scribbler.
Return the favor in some way. One day.
Well, that's super cool. So everyone should follow Borough Bound, subscribe if you're not patrons, and we hope to work together more in the future. We love what you guys do and how you approach world building and all kinds of design topics you brought up. We didn't even cover everything, I'm sure.
I know, yeah.
I could talk for ages.
Why don't you come back on when there's with the Kickstarter, and we can do more of a big go to the Kickstarter deal.
That'd be fun. Oh, that'd be fun. We could just do a Ilmorn deep dive, James.
Yeah.
Cool. That'd be we'll actually just talk about content more.
Yeah. If you ever want us to do a city for Danse Macabre, we'll just do a completely accurate Rouen or Angers or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
Totally. Well,
I might. We might have to talk to y'all about
true. Just fully accurate medieval France / Lordran somehow.
Yeah. Well, we've moved the setting a little bit, so now we're looking at Constantinople as well as
it's still France. We just want to have it sort of half with the rest of the medieval Mediterranean world. So
is kind of the focus of it, but France is still there. It's still kind of the main focal point of the setting. But
it's a shame. In my dream, France is not still there, but in general. French listeners.
In the future.
Spicy at the end. Yeah.
I don't know how many French listeners we have, but they won't like you.
Well, we'll leave it. We'll have you back on, and we'll have a French guest, and the two of you can get in a shouting match. It'll be great. Everyone, check out Borough Bound, and if you're listening to this live and you haven't checked us out, check out Blister Critters. It's on Kickstarter for another couple weeks. Thanks a lot to Will Savino and James Southall.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for making so much time, and we'll do it again.
Definitely.
For now, that's this is why we roll.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll. Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline. If If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on Twitch and what used to be Twitter at WhyWeRoll, and on Instagram at whyweroll.pod.
You can find out more about Dance Macabre at timespaceplace.itch.io/dance-macabre.
You can find out more about Stillfleet at stillfleet.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here, and if you like today's show, why not have a listen to the All Things Nintendo podcast? Hosted by Brian Shea, former director and Game Informer and lifelong games journalist, the show explores the ins and outs of gaming's oldest company and one of its biggest, featuring interviews, featuring reviews, featuring everything you want to know about the world of Nintendo. If you'd like to learn more, check out our website at podderation.com.